Try something smart to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
It is Thursday, January the 18th, 2024, and this is program number 1814 of The Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to radio, 101.1 FM frequency, you can also get us at our website. It is rcistlucia.com. That's rcistlucia.com. And all our previous shows are available there for download. You can also find us on our Facebook Live feed. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And of course, be sure to share that link, please, as well. And make sure you like it as well. Now, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 4523046. Again, 4523046. As well as our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, our plate today is going to be about the matter of mediation, and it has a very important role within our judicial system. And we're going to be speaking about some activities within that space, including some private sector involvement, as well as to how you can certainly solve conflicts without necessarily getting too deep into the justice system or taking things into your own hand, even worse, certainly. So we're going to be speaking with that. It's going to be a very interesting show in just a bit with my two very special guests. But first, some birthday greetings going out to Dr. Christine Descott. Happy birthday to you, and wishing you a fantastic birthday celebration. Also to Miss Latoya Lewis. Happy birthday to you, Latoya, and hope it's going to be a grand day, a grand celebration for you. And also birthday greetings going out to Mr. Arno Menz. Happy birthday to you, Arno, and we're wishing you an absolutely fantastic birthday celebration. Also want to send out some condolences to the family of the late I.F. Jeremy. For some individuals, he was known as CP. And he passed recently. Contractor of note, built a number of public schools here in St. Lucia. His funeral service is actually this afternoon. Now, a bit of history for today. In the year 1788, the first elements of the first fleet carrying 736 convicts from England to Australia arrived at Botany Bay to set up a penal colony there. In the year 1817, Argentine General Jose de San Martin led a revolutionary army across the Andes range, and that was to attack Spanish royalists in Chile. 1871 saw the Second German Empire proclaimed by Kaiser Wilhelm I and Otto von Bismarck. 1943, on this day, the Soviets announced that they had broken the long siege of Leningrad by Nazi Germany. And in 2016, on this day, a very interesting bit of note on inequity in the world. The world's 62 richest people were now as wealthy as half of the world's population. And that was according to a report published by the charity Oxfam. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. This all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jugosile, and Slack Street in Dufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program. Just a very, very short dish of the day today, and it's just to mention, of course, some matters relating to tourism, and in particular, the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival. That, of course, has become a staple of the calendar of events in St. Lucia. It was reformed somewhat under the Soleil brand for a couple of years, but it is, in fact, has been brought in under its somewhat traditional form in the month of May. And for the second year now, it's back. Of course, this is a festival that has started back in the year 1992. And it certainly has been a very important instrument in terms of trying to shift the numbers of arrivals away from what was traditionally that peak arrival period in the winter months, and to try to raise those numbers in the down periods, like May. And of course, right now, May is no longer a down period for St. Lucia tourism. It's actually one of the busiest months within the year. And of course, the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival has played its role in terms of doing just that. And so, of course, the lineup has been announced. That was done yesterday. And quite a number of events. Of course, what was announced yesterday, really just the main stage events, or the events put on by the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. But it is certainly a much broader undertaking now, with a number of local entities getting involved in the production of the Jazz and Arts Festival. The Cultural Development Foundation is a major stakeholder and producer, in fact, as well, putting on the Arts in the City component of it. And we can think of the Soufriere Foundation, and they're putting on Soufriere Jazz. It is in Babonneau, it is in Monchy, it's going to be in Dennery, and no doubt in the south as well. And so it certainly is something to look forward to. And it has become one of those other periods of time where a lot of people are moving away from coming down for Christmas, and they're looking to actually come in the month of May. And so some of the big names, of course, that have been mentioned within that context, individuals in producing the more gospel-oriented Kingdom Night, Donnie McClurkin, and a number of local acts as well, including Adoration and Praise, mentioning them because there was a special appeal, I understand, by Father Albert to ensure that Babonneau was represented on main stage jazz, and I think he's gotten his way in that regard. Samara Joy is coming in terms of the Thursday Pure Jazz Show at Pigeon Island. Marshall Montano and Beres Hammond on the Friday. Saturday is World Beats, as it has been termed, and it's a mix of local from the Caribbean, the likes of Latin, John Cicada coming in again, Chloe Bailey, who's certainly has adopted St. Lucia to some degree as a second home. She's coming in alongside the DYP band, as well as Vibe, Coppa being represented there, and of course the very popular Afrobeats sensations like Davido and Joe Boy. And as well, on the Sunday, the likes of St. Lucian artists like Carl Gustav, Augustin Jab Duplessis, Michelle Henderson out of Dominica, as well as headliners Babyface and Air Supply. So we've been told that there's more to look forward to, and so no doubt there'll be some interesting additional revelations there as well. Also, just very quickly, a mention of the cruise sector, and we did see a very lovely vessel making its maiden voyage into St. Lucia, the Valiant Lady. That's part of the cruise Virgin Voyages. Of course, we know Virgin traditionally more so in terms of what they have been doing in terms of the airline industry, but in fact they are in lots of other transport-related sectors. They run trains as well, and they are also into the cruise business. So very fine vessel, and it treated us to a lovely light show, so to speak, saying thank you to the Port Harbor of Castries yesterday. So some lovely images coming out of that as well. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we're going to be speaking with our guests on the matter of mediation.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lance Road in Castries, Bosses Joe Grizzly, and Flag Street in Dufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
And welcome back to our program for today. Now, of course, in the news, we certainly have been seeing quite a lot of discourse about the issue of conflict resolution and the issue of crime, violent crime in particular, unfortunately, and the wave of crime that we've been seeing impacting us here in St. Lucia and, of course, the broader Caribbean. And yesterday we were speaking a bit about the matter of our justice system and the importance of that justice system working efficiently. If people don't have the confidence that they can, in fact, go to the justice system and get a reasonable a response within a reasonable time frame, a determination within a reasonable time frame, they are, of course, not going to go the route of that formal system. And so there have been efforts over the years to be able to look at these various aspects of justice, and it certainly has not been just about adding more courtrooms and bringing in more judges. The approach has been different so that many matters need not get before a judge. And so within that context, I think it's very fitting that we're seeing the efforts of individuals who in the process of mediation. And so I'm very pleased to have with me here today at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International two mediators. And they're going to be telling us quite a lot about the evolution of this process of mediation. What does it mean? How does it work out? As well as some other efforts to be able to ensure that this is becoming a lot more understood and popularized in our society as a means of resolving conflict. And so very pleased to introduce today Mrs. Petra Nelson. She is a legal professional as well as a mediator within our system, as well as Mr. Urban Dolor, no stranger to the Lunchroom. He's held on here a few times, and of course people know him from that perspective. Of course, he is also a former educator, a former principal of the South Lewis Community College, and he is also a mediator. Welcome to the Lunchroom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, let's start off, perhaps, Mrs. Nelson, about this matter of mediation. Maybe for a lot of people, that we may have some ideas as to what that might mean, but what does it really mean within the context of what you do as a mediator?
Well, basically, mediation is a form of dispute resolution. It is one of the arms. You have the alternative dispute resolution, and two main ones are arbitration and you have mediation. Mediation really is party-driven. It is much cheaper for somebody to engage in mediation, or the parties to engage in mediation, and it actually shortens the court's time. What has happened is there was quite a backlog of cases and matters. There was a lot of delay in matters getting before a court, and people were very dissatisfied. They felt that there was no justice in this place. So basically what happened is the Court of Appeal, under the stewardship of Sir Dennis Byron in 2002, implemented a court-connected mediation pilot project where several parties, several members of the bar and other professions in civil society also, who actually trained for a 40-hour period and they were certified as mediators. As I said, it was a pilot project. St. Lucia was the pilot and the ship which was used, and there was an issue of a practice direction from the court. I think it was practice direction 2 of 2002, and we started mediation from there. Upon seeing the success of mediation, obviously there was always resistance, because what you find is you find that people, they look at you, you're a litigator, I'm a litigator, and so people coming with the idea that you must come in and have your way, not understanding that it is the whole issue of mediation is compromise. You make the decision instead of having a court make a final decision where a party wins, a party loses, you have costs to pay, and this can really anger people and can prevent you from actually ever having a relationship with somebody who maybe family members or in a business with, and then you want to ensure not only that matters are dealt with quickly, cheaply, but people feel empowered in that they have made the decision, they have compromised, and they leave a situation more or less satisfied that this was their decision. It was not a court that forced a decision upon them.
I don't want you to make any enemies within your fraternity, but was there any cold feet, trepidation from within the legal fraternity as to going down this route, perhaps seeing it as, potentially taking away from their potential to make more fees through the court system?
There were cold feet and there was trepidation. I am not too sure that it was from taking away, like fees, because like I say, as a litigator myself and a trained mediator, it is so important to deal with matters quickly, close a file, move on to the next. When matters linger and you have to go to the courts, and then our people sometimes, it's not you do not have very deep pockets in every aspect of society in St. Lucia. So what you find is people get frustrated, they're unable to pay the legal fees. So I found that a lot of the lawyers were very happy to have the mediation process, and we utilized it, and based on the success of mediation within the first year in St. Lucia, the court then extended it to the other OECS islands.
Very interesting. Now, in terms of numbers, I don't know if any are available to give a sense as to how much is mediation taking away from these traditional applications to the court. Is it making a significant impact, we can say, after 20 years?
I think it is, and not only is it making a significant impact prior to going to the court, because it was a court connected, you would have had to have filed, and at case management, then once the parties agree, then you are referred to mediation. But what it has done is people are now understanding that you can actually go to mediation before, and lawyers are now implementing mediation proceedings even prior to filing in very sensitive matters. What I can give you some examples, like under our rules, our CPR, it does not include family law matters because the Divorce Act is separate and apart, and all divorce matters are dealt with under the Divorce Act and rules as opposed to the CPR. So what has happened is that once we are before the court, even if we are aware that the rules of engagement in relation to mediation are for specifically the High Court civil matters, we would still ask the judge, give us the opportunity to choose and have a mediator try to assist us in settling matters. And that has found itself to be quite successful.
Do you think that sometimes people still want to hear that recommendation coming from a judge? That, I mean, in as much as you were saying that, you could do it beforehand,
Yes.
the two parties coming together. But, sometimes people need to hear it coming from a judicial officer guys, you could sit down and sort this out on your own.
Yes, yes. No, no holds barred. Yes, the clients tell you, "I want to hear it from the judge." They tell you that. So, but you try to encourage them beforehand. You try to explain to them how easier, how much easier on your pocket, easier on your time, on your even on your own peace of mind. How much better it is to try to settle the matter, and how empowered you feel when the decision you walk away with is yours, as opposed to that which is being imposed on you by a judge who really doesn't know anything about you or your circumstances. But I have to tell you, you have quite a few people who tell you, well, I want the judge to tell me, or I want to hear that from the judge. So you're quite right.
Now, in terms of the number of individuals, I mean, I know we have hundreds of lawyers right now, but how many people have been trained over the years in mediation? What pool of individuals can we work with?
I do not have the exact numbers. I'm not too sure if Urban can assist us on that. But the first batch, there was a first batch of lawyers. A lot of us were more termed some more senior lawyers who were trained, and since then you have had continuous training of lawyers and other people from civil society. So we have quite a few. I do not have a specific figure, but some of them are court connected, but not all the trained mediators are court connected.
Okay. So, Mr. Dolo, I mean, you are a mediator, of course, and invariably you would be appointed by the court
Yes.
to be able to deal with a matter which has come before the court.
Selected by the lawyer and the clients.
And there has to be agreement by the parties as well.
Yes.
That is the case. Okay.
Yes.
But is it that the judge selects you, or is it just the two parties? Is it?
I think it's done through a master who manages it.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
The master or the judge, sorry, if I may butt in, is the master or the judge. Basically the parties would indicate to the court, because it has to be by agreement of the parties. And the whole issue is that everything is confidential. That is one of the main key things about mediation. Whatever you go in to tell the mediator, it is confidential, and you do so. It allows you to speak freely, and you're not bound by your pleadings, the documents you have filed. So if you have a certain matter with somebody, but there are other extraneous, or external issues which are affecting your reaction and how you're dealing, then these things you're allowed to vent in a mediation. But basically, the parties must agree, and then the court now will order the mediation, and then it goes from there.
Those processes time bound? Do you have to complete them with a certain time frame?
We should. Most times you're given, I think, 60 to 90 days to go to mediation. What happens is, based on people's calendars and different things, vicissitudes of life and things, so you're unable to maybe make a specific date, and therefore sometimes the court has to extend it. But the court really extends it once all the parties come before the court to tell the court, well, certainly we believe that this matter can be settled by mediation, and especially if a court looks at a situation and believes that, okay, the facts we have before us cannot go to trial. This makes no sense, so you all need to try to get to settle this matter. So in these circumstances, you find that the court will accommodate and give extensions after a certain time, although sometimes, we are given serious warnings because sometimes people take advantage of it.
You did mention the importance of confidentiality in the process. Yes. Two questions coming out of that. The decisions that have been determined by the mediation process are also confidential? Is that
no?
No.
The decision is not. Whatever agreement you arrive at the mediation is then written down by the mediator and then sent to the mediation coordinator, and then it is put down in the form of an order of the court, and then the court will pronounce it as an order of the court once all parties agree.
Right. But the details of what has been discussed those cannot be divulged
No,
beyond.
they cannot, especially if the matter is not settled. So the mediator would basically have to tear up their notes, and the parties would not be able to go and divulge, well, in the mediation you said this or that or the other. Nor can the mediator, who's a neutral person in all the proceedings, that mediator cannot be called to give evidence when you go to court to say, well, but you said this in front of the mediator or that in front of the mediator. It is totally confidential, and that is what really encourages people to speak openly.
Well, you actually already answered my other question, which was the information that is used within that setting of mediation should not in any way jeopardize if, in fact, this matter has to go to court later on. So it in no way imparts upon the court matter.
No, it does not.
I see. So in terms of what are people coming to seeking mediation for? I mean, what are some of the examples that we can look at? What are the recurring decimals, I suppose, of mediation? Are we seeing that in the case of St. Lucia? Is it land? Is it, I mean, what types of matters are we
It's
dealing with?
everything. It's everything, really. Because even in the magistrates' court, or you have magistrates' court, there was a practice direction in 2010 for the criminal courts. However, that has not been implemented as yet. But informally, magistrates, the magistrates' courts, actually, they have implemented some forms of mediation, both in civil and criminal matters. And like I said, with respect to family matters, you have a lot of family matters where we do mediation, but we would ask the court for permission. The court will then give us the opportunity to mediate, even if they do not actually give a specific order to mediate, because family matters do not come within the ambit of the civil high court for CPR for that. However, certainly all different matters go before mediators. Very difficult matters. I usually like a lot of our partition actions. I think Mr. Dolor can say some of the others that he's done with. But nearly everything can go once you believe that there's a chance that whatever relationship, because sometimes it is not the facts which are pleaded in the documents. It is really all the extenuous things, the external things that are affecting people and their relationships is what is affecting and preventing people from agreeing on certain issues. And what the mediation does is gives them the opportunity to come in and vent. Now we have ground rules. So venting can mean you can raise your voice a little, you can say a little thing, but you cannot curse, you cannot disrespect, you cannot try to jump on the table or fight, you know. But certainly that is the opportunity that people get. And after venting, you find that they start listening to the mediator who tries to give all the different options for settling the matters. And then they would look at it and say, well, that doesn't sound too bad, you know, this, and then, you know, they try to encourage them to compromise their position. So you come in there with a hard and fast position, and then the mediator, through the different options and, you know, trying to appeal to people's sensitivities and everything, will get you to kind of start looking at things slightly different, especially after you've said a few words that you need to say to the other side.
Now, Mr. Dolor, I mean, it's interesting that Mrs. Nelson is raising these matters because, of course, she's a litigant, an attorney, and we quite often get into this thinking that, you know, well, it's a judicial matter, so it has to be dealt with by an attorney. But from what she's saying, there's a whole set of other skill sets that seem to be coming into the picture. You need to almost be a social worker. You need to be a psychologist. You need a lot of different skills that are at play. I assume even you as an educator, having to make peace within a classroom perhaps, or to bring across a certain message, have certain skill sets that have been very useful at being a mediator.
Most definitely. Indeed, when you consider Ms. Nelson, as she said, she's a litigator, right? She's on one side where the party has less control over the outcome. In court, the party has any control over the outcome. On the other side of mediation is negotiation, where the party has a lot of control over the agreement. So whereas I am coming from a background of negotiation, because I used to be president of the Teachers Union. I think you remember
Right.
that, right? So and what Ms. Nelson mentioned that when the program started in 2002, a number of persons were brought in to include people working in the courts, people working in the prisons, lawyers, union people, and so on. So that is a sort of almost like a continuum from negotiation to litigation, and with arbitration somewhere in between there.
Just, I mean, roughly, out of a scale of 10,
Yes.
how many matters do you think actually have you dealt with that have gotten settled through the process of mediation?
I would say between 7 and 8.
7 and 8. Okay.
Yes.
So most of the matters, in fact, are getting sorted out, and,
yes.
and do not have to, in fact, go beyond and to settlement in the courts.
Right. And you mentioned the whole skill set that mediators must have. Among them, for example, is the whole question of the psychology you spoke about. Here's a simple example. There's something called anchoring. And anchoring is when the first set of data that you have been exposed to has a significant impact.
A bias almost.
Yes,
kind
it's
of.
called an anchoring bias.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's actually called. And so as a mediator, you now have to ensure that parties do not that they leave out, they forget about for example, the statement of claim, as Mrs. Nelson said, and come afresh. Now, and so that is always the most difficult, one of the more difficult things to do, to get people to move away from that anchor that they started with. Yeah. So that's one of the things. And a number of other things, the way things are framed. So, for example, if I say to you, you are hungry, come and get some food. It is completely different from if I tell you, if I told you, I have some chicken there, it tastes very nice, would you like some? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so as a mediator, you first of all try to use language that allows them to frame things differently. So I say you are 95% fat free, as opposed to saying you are, but 5% of your body is fat. Yeah. So that's that sort of thing. Just some of the things that you mentioned are very important in terms of the actually mediating.
Very, very interesting. Now, we have so many things to discuss, but we actually do have to take a break for our weather at this time. So we're going to do this. And when we come back, I want to get into this whole issue of, could there be potential areas of bias? I mean, you're having one individual coming in to go through a mediation process. So I just want to get some feedback on that issue.
Okay.
And then, of course, the other matter which was just raised, moving into that criminal space and how soon we can achieve that, you think? Okay. We'll be right back after this.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and thin sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need to sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality price, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
Welcome back to the lunchroom, and our apologies, we don't seem to have that weather report available for 12 noon, but hopefully we can share something with you on that later on. But we are speaking on the matter of mediation, and I'm so very pleased to have my guests in studio today, lawyer Petra Nelson, as well, of course, she is a mediator, and Mr. Urban Dolof, former educator. They are both mediators, and we're discussing the whole process within our justice system here in St. Lucia. And since 2002, as Mrs. Nelson has indicated to us, that pilot project had started off by former Chief Justice of great and renowned Sir Dennis Byron, and it has now blossomed into becoming a very important part of the options for alternative dispute resolution within our justice system. Now, some people, Mr. Dolo and Mrs. Nelson, may be thinking, boy, should I really trust this mediator? What are some of the safeguards in a small society like ours? Degrees of separation are so small. This person knows that person. How are those matters dealt with within our system?
Well, at the end of it all, it depends on how the mediator comports himself or herself at the mediation. Because as a mediator, you have to be absolutely impartial. And in fact, one of the things I always say to the people who are mediating is that if for any reason you think that I am being partial, that I'm taking a side, please let me know. So the mediator acts impartially. Now, remember that notwithstanding that Mrs. Nelson is a lawyer, if you and I are in a dispute and she is your lawyer, she will take your side. If she is my lawyer, she will take my side. So all that needs to happen as a mediator is that Mrs. Nelson takes no sides or she takes both sides. Now, you can take both sides in a sense that, because we have something in mediation called a caucus. And if you are going to be in caucus, you can, we have something called where we describe it as brute reality. So I will say to you, listen, here is the situation. Reality check, that's a technical term. Here is the situation. Your facts are not useful. And as a mediator, I tell you that in caucus, however. So, and if the other side has a similar problem or a different problem, as a mediator, I can also do that, but I will do it in caucus. The other thing that we should note as well is that it is not often that people come to mediation, particularly court-connected mediation, without an attorney, right? And again, in fact, I have found that very often, very, very often, attorneys are happy when it is the mediator who tells the reality check. You see what I'm saying? Because it is uncomfortable for the lawyer to say to the client, listen, what you're saying there is inflated. I mean, you are telling me that you could have made $20,000 a month, selling bananas, red bananas. As a lawyer, you could tell them that once, but if they insist they can make $20,000, you can't keep saying it. But as a mediator, to me, I can say it and without any fear of being ostracized afterwards. You see what I'm saying? So these are some of the things that, as a mediator, you have to be impartial, and you have to let people know and recognize that you're being impartial.
So, from what
I wanted to add, sorry.
No, go ahead. Don't be
I want to
sorry.
add that a mediator is a neutral party, so that the mediator doesn't make a decision. So what we usually do is that sometimes you come into a mediation and, okay, as lawyers, sometimes if you have lawyers, or if I go and Mr. Dolo is there, he would indicate to the other side, well, Mrs. Nelson is a mediator. I've known her for a while. However, she's just the lawyer representing the party. And and I know your lawyer too. So, and I am not here to make a decision. I am here to help you all make that decision, because I am a neutral party. The mediator never makes a decision in the matter. The caucus that Mr. Dolo speaks of is when you find that the parties have reached like an impasse, and they are unable to, and you see that there's no movement, and they basically ready to throw in the towel and said, okay, we're going to court. You said, okay, let us have a caucus. And then you meet with one party first, in the absence of the other party.
Okay.
And that's when you give them the reality check. You understand? And say, wait. You see the thing you say in there? There's no way you can prove this, this, and this, because I'm not seeing, you're able to do these things. I'm not, understanding your accounts or whatever, the basis is. Then you go on and then you say, okay, tell me what you have told me in this caucus that you want me to repeat to the other side. And then they would then tell you. Then you meet the other side, and then if the other side has anything that you need to criticize them on or make a reality check with them, you tell them what it is, and then you bring the parties together at the end, and then you say, okay, coming from both from the caucus, I'm able to tell you that side A is looking at making a proposal A, B, C, D. And then side B is saying this, that, and the other. Let's move on from here. Let's see how we can get this thing closer. If you see sometimes you come in, you like $5,000 from, like you had 200,000 on both sides or something like that. And then you reduce it to $5,000. Like, hey guys, I mean, really, you're going to go to court. The amount of money you have to spend to go to trial, if you're looking at a good $15,000-$20,000 to go to a trial. For $5,000, when all you can do is say, okay, I'll pay $2,500, or the other side pays $2,500, and from there you realize that, okay, all you do is pay $2,500. You compromise, so you're empowered in that you decided to pay that $2,500. And a lot of times especially in our culture, you have pride, pride of our people. And therefore, so that gives them the empowerment. They make the decision to settle. So they settle at that, and they save so much more money. And then they save face also. So that is important.
It's difficult for some people to admit that they're wrong, though. Eh? and I suppose, is that part of the challenge that you have? As
yes,
Mrs. Nelson is saying,
yes, it is. But
we like to be macho, we're very wrong and strong, we're holding our ground. No quarter given.
In addition to that, we also have to look at the party's interests. What exactly do they really want? Is it that they want to save face? Is it that they really feel that they were hurt? And so once you get to those kind of nitty-gritty discussions, then you can actually move away from the position that they started off with, and come and begin to see, okay, maybe that what I really need is for you to apologize to me. I really don't need the money, but it's the principle. And usually when people take a decision based on fundamental principles, they both understand accept the principle. It's just that because of the circumstance. Just to use an analogy, I mean, I'm going to be troublesome here. It's just like political parties. When you're in opposition, you're operating on one principle, And when you're in government, you want to be pragmatic, But when you understand,
right.
but it's not that fundamentally you don't understand that you're looking for utilitarianism on one side, and you're looking for being practical or being dogmatic and so on the other side.
And I suppose you may have people who are what vexatious litigants. They want to go to court. They want to drag out the process. They want to make things difficult for the other person.
There again, you have to, and that is where the mediator actually shows his or her mettle. Is when you can help the parties understand that this is not about personality. This is about understanding what are your needs, and you can do that as Ms. Nelson said. You can do that in caucus, right? You can have that kind of heart-to-heart talk with them, right? But then it is getting them almost to the point where they almost find it useful for them to help each other solve their problem. Because if you help me solve my problem, I can help you solve yours. So let's take it there.
Very, very interesting. Now, of course, if you want to join in the conversation which you're having on the matter of mediation as an option to resolving matters, both in and out of the courts, we should also mention, you can call in. The number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 3046. As well, you can reach us on our WhatsApp. That is 724-0008. You can call in on that number as well as send us a message. Now, Mr. Dolo, I mean, as we're speaking about how do people access the service, maybe you may want to jump in here a little bit because beyond the court, I mean, what is available in terms of going to an agency to say, hey, we want to settle this matter outside of court?
Okay. Currently, there is a program available to the general public via the High Court, which is the registry. The registrar, it is called? The registrar of the High Court, where you can actually go in and say, listen, I have a matter. I have not gone to any lawyer, but I would like for the court to help me identify a mediator. And the court would do that. The matter would then be mediated. And in fact, Mrs. Nelson can help me out with that. I think there's some kind of paper that some form or some paper that you use, and is registered, actually registered with the court so that it has some of authority. One of the things that the Mediators Forum will do as well is to have a portal. And that portal will allow you to access mediators who will then be able to charge you, will obviously charge you some fee because you need to charge for the out-of-pocket and so on. But that will be something that the Mediators Forum will actually be able to do.
Now, you mentioned Mediators Forum. Tell us what that is a little bit, please.
Well, the Mediators Forum is a group of persons, mediators, trained mediators for the most part, who have come together in an effort to promote mediation, because we understand, as we've said so many times before, that it is an avenue to enable people to have easier access to justice. In addition to that, we also look to provide services for communities. In a sense, and the law in St. Lucia, for example, makes provision for the community of business people, the mercantile system, to negotiate, if you wish, with the persons who are actually purchasing those services through the Consumer Act, or the consumer, if you wish. And again, that would be an avenue that the Mediators Forum would help with.
So essentially, it's going to be the professional body representing mediators in St. Lucia.
Definitely, and in fact, that's one of our aims, which is to help to represent mediators with external agencies and so on. The other thing that the Mediators Forum will focus on is the question of education. Because while the High Court and so has consistently put up programs for the 40-hour thing that we've been speaking about, the Mediators Forum would provide the opportunity for persons who are not going to necessarily be mediators, for example, human resource managers, even managers themselves, parents, and so on, who can come in and do maybe a 12-hour program or a 20-hour program. Because you then understand the fundamentals of mediation, and this will certainly help in things like sports clubs and other organizations within the community.
Okay. So it's not just going to be about mediation within the judicial system, the justice system,
right?
But expanding that concept of philosophy of mediation into the society.
That is correct.
Into the
communities and so on. Very, very important. Because go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I think there was outreach program in 2017, actually, where they went into the communities, into the schools and everything. Because mediation is not, like you say, just for settling disputes. It is, well, at least not legal disputes only, but any little issues among children in the school. So even teachers, the people in human resource management, everybody should have some form of training and try to know and understand how you can try and settle any issues within the organization that you're in.
And you're hearing that call. I mean, people are saying, even in terms of curriculum reform, the importance of teaching dispute resolution, conflict resolution as part of, what is in fact on the book, so to speak, within the system of our education. I mean, that's also a very important point that you're making. Of course, as a former educator, Mr. Dolo, you're seeing even right now so many challenges with our schools, and you're hearing gangs amongst young people, and you know, is that one of your major areas of interest for the
and
mediators
concern?
forum,
Yes, yes,
that education sector?
definitely. Because one of the things that we have recognized is that almost invariably physical violence comes after there has been verbal violence. So that part and parcel of the mediation process.
You want to say that again?
Let me say. You want me to say it again?
Yes, please.
Say it again.
Yeah, I think so. You should. It's a very powerful point.
Yes, because what we have recognized is that very often physical violence comes after verbal violence. And too often we actually exacerbate physical violence by what we say. So that what we learned, or what we were told when we were growing up, that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me, is a total fallacy, right? And that would be one of the areas that we would look at as we go around and go about helping people to deal with disputes. Don't have the dispute in the first place. Have a way of dealing with it. And that's one of the important things that the mediators forum will look at.
Solving matters. We have a way of just kicking things down the road, kicking the can down the road, so to speak, and a lot of things never get solved properly. Is that part of the problem that we have?
Yes, and let me say something else that I think may have contributed to some of the violence we see now. Parents sometimes say to their children that you mustn't let anybody hit you. If they hit you, hit them back. Now, once you start off with this notion of if they hit you, hit them back, you're going to cause confusion. Because, again, psychologically...
Or sometimes they'll sell you something and they'll say, hit me up.
Hit me up. Okay, right?
That's an example.
Because now the hit me up actually is consistent with something where naturally we have a tendency to escalate anything that's done to us. So somebody I will curse you, right? Some small thing. But when you respond, you're not going to tell me something in kind. You're going to tell me something that's a little more hurtful.
Pinching, yes.
A little more pinching, right? And so it escalates. So I touch you, I tap you, you're not going to tap me, you're going to give me a harder slap. And so the thing, so the battle starts. So all of those psychological things we have to be concerned about, and we have to, as mediators, and part and parcel of the forum, will be to help people understand all of those little things that appear to be small, but which makes a big difference to our lives.
Very, very important within this current era. Mrs. Nelson, you are also...
But let me...
sorry.
No, let me just... You say about in this era. It has always been so, What has made it more problematic, I think, is that because we have become so much more efficient, that it is more problematic. It appears to be more problematic.
Guns are available now. People have these means of actually,
Before you would
punch somebody
or even go and get a 2x4, right? Or even a knife, right? And if you try to kill somebody with a knife, it's not easy.
Right. The tools of violence have stepped up.
But now that we have guns everywhere, when I was growing up, that's a long time ago, I agree. But the two things I didn't see like that, I never saw when I was growing up, was a gun and $100 bill. You know what I'm saying? Seriously, I never saw a gun until I was maybe 20 or so. Now guns are everywhere. So it is even more important for us to understand and find ways of not escalating violence against each other, because not almost invariably, but it is easier for us to kill one another.
In other words, we've had a long-standing problem with violence, but we're now finally actually seeing it.
You see it,
becoming manifesting.
Yeah, I mean, in my day, when I went to school, there was not an afternoon when there was not a fight.
Yeah.
Wow.
After it was not a day when there was Petra. You too. I don't know about you, but
I taught at school.
You know what I'm saying? And so the kind of maybe it could have been that we dissipated the violence a little more often, and so it didn't boil up like a volcano kind of thing. If it's capped, it boils up, it builds up, and then finally there's an explosion. But yes, but the important thing is that we have to, because of how efficient we are, manage our emotions better.
Mrs. Nelson, you also mentioned that there was in fact some procedures on the criminal matter, the criminal division,
Yes.
passed in 2010, but they have not yet been implemented. Speak to that a little bit, maybe, if you can, and what's it going to take, maybe, to get us there?
I have to apologize that because I do more high court, I have not really been involved in that aspect of it. My understanding is that there is movement towards implementation, and I'm not too sure if between everything else and COVID caused,
So this would be at the magistracy level? Is that
No, the magistrates level, they already do mediation for both civil and criminal. I've done criminal matters where we have settled matters in the magistrates court. However, for the high court criminal, I guess, again, because of the more sophistication of and the nature of the crime, it might be more difficult. So they would have to be a lot involved in the implementation of that type of mediation.
It's interesting that you're saying so, because there's a very topical matter. I don't want to put you on the spot, where a lady apparently was attacked by her spouse. I'm not sure exactly whether they were married or partner. And this person was arrested, and of course she was in fact expressing hurt and wanted justice for her spouse who was killed by the police. And I'm just wondering, you actually do have these types of real instances of violence, which you may actually think could be solved by dispute resolution, by mediation, you think?
I think one of the things that is being looked into is a concept called restorative justice. And essentially, the thinking now is that as you look at the matters in the High Court and so on, that you begin to look at not only the harm that was caused to the society, because as you would know, the case is always the state versus the individual and so on. Right? But then you also have to take into account the person that actually committed the crime.
Right.
How can that person compensate the other person? What does the society have to do to cause that person who committed the crime to become a better person in the society? And that comes under the heading of restorative justice. I know that in some countries, for example, Grenada, St. Vincent, Barbados, they started actually looking at some of those restorative, and they call them restorative programs in schools, where, again, rather than punishing the child straight off, you say, okay, what can you do to make that person where they were supposed to be? And the school can now also take on a responsibility to deal with the child.
Now, what you're saying is so fundamental, because what we have right now is, well, if I take your eye out, then I go to jail.
Yes.
You still don't have an eye.
I still don't have an eye.
And so what you're saying is that, and what people tend to do then is that they want an eye for an eye, so that they go and act out against the other person.
That is correct.
But then,
then
within the context of restorative justice, you should be able to get your eye back.
Yeah, well, I should be able to at least get
some sort of compensation,
some way of dealing with the hardships that I have because I only have one eye, for example.
Right.
So these are some of the things that I'm sure we are going to be looking at over the next few years, because we need to move away from the same system where you just left the person to fend for themselves. And when I say fend for themselves, I mean both the person who was harmed physically or otherwise, and the person
And
who
this
did
was
the harming.
exactly the issue of the lady who was saying that, look, this was actually her breadwinner.
Yes.
It's a very unfortunate situation. I mean, you could talk about Stockholm Syndrome and all of those
Yes,
things, but
yes.
this was her reality. And so it's interesting that you've raised that, certainly, Mr. Dolo. And Mrs. Nelson, we've been having a wonderful conversation, but unfortunately, guess what? We're already out of time
Oh.
on this program. And it's been a very wonderful conversation, and hopefully something that we can continue to have in the months ahead, in the weeks and months ahead. But any parting thoughts from either of you?
Well, I need to say that it was very useful for St. Lucia to have had that program, because it certainly made a difference to how the civil matters were dealt with and have been dealt with. I mean, when I tell people that when we started mediating, we had cases that, in general or on average, we had cases 5-6 years old. Now we're doing cases for the most. In fact, last year I did some 23 cases.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're getting a little bit of catch up now.
Yeah,
The backlog is going down.
Yeah, so there's very little backlog. And in addition to that, over the next few years, I imagine what would happen is that we'll move away from. Just now, let me just stop a bit, because you said something earlier on that I wanted to offer a thought on. One of the things that as mediators we have to be careful with is that parties don't see us as being judges, as being magistrates, as being the ones who will impose. And in fact, it's very easy for a mediator to fall into that trap and not be neutral, as Petra was saying. And so that's something that some people have seen that as a disadvantage to mediation, in that the mediator has the opportunity or the power in a sense to determine, even if not directly, but you know, by the way that they handle the situation, to cause people to go into a direction in which they're not happy. Yeah, I thought I wanted to.
Thank you so very much for that. Mrs. Nelson, any
Yes,
parting
well,
words?
thank you very much. What I would like to say is that mediation is really the way to go. And even before things escalate to violence, people need to understand that they need to speak about their issues. They need to try to deal with their issues. And it is very good that we have the opportunity in St. Lucia, and we were the flagship for it, to deal with all types of disputes, and the types of matters which can come to mediation are not restricted, because people can choose to come to mediation even without the intervention of the courts. And I just want to encourage our people, to come on board, to understand what mediation is all about, and to just try and make our country a better place.
Wonderful, wonderful. The only thing I didn't ask you is whether you've actually witnessed a fight in a mediation setting.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen.
No, not yet.
I mean, just recently we saw what happened in
an
a Nevada courtroom in the United States of America, with a man lunging himself at a judge. So these things, in fact, are happening, and issues of emotions.
The very good thing is that recently the mediation have been via Zoom.
Ah,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
all right.
But
So it's not much
we
face
have
to face.
seen, so they can get
Very
quite
heated,
animated.
Mm.
And actually, Dr. Urban Seraphin was the mediator. I was representing a party when my client lunged. Yes,
Wow.
at the other side.
Yes.
And I literally had to get up and hold my
You were the
client
bailiff.
against a wall.
Okay.
I'm telling you. So every time Dr. Seraphin and we always laugh at that. It's like,
imagine.
wow, it's a good thing. He tell me it's a good thing you were so reaction, we have Dr. Seraphin was. But it can get like that. And what we did, that matter was settled though.
Wow.
I'm just telling you,
Wow.
the matter was settled. What we did, we separated the parties, and we went from one room to another until we got them to settle. So even in a situation like that,
Right.
you can get resolution, and that is what is good about mediation.
Wonderful.
Just a final note based on what you said. Just a final note. In some, like in St. Lucia, in the Eastern Caribbean, the model that we use is that we caucus when there is a problem. In some some jurisdictions, for example, like a lot of mediation happens in England, is the opposite way, where you actually start off you have a sort of a plenary to begin with, but you put the people in their rooms,
Right.
and the mediator then shuttles between the two.
Okay.
So it's a completely
Right.
different model. Yeah.
Very, 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 very interesting. And it's been a very rich conversation, quite enlightening. I've learned a lot about the process, and I hope our listeners have as well. And hopefully individuals will be able to appreciate the avenues available in solving matters, solving conflicts, however heated they may be. We've been speaking with Mrs. Petra Nelson and Mr. Urban Dulaw. They're both mediators, and they're part of the Mediators Forum, which has just recently been launched. No doubt we'll be hearing about them a lot more and the avenues to alternative conflict resolution. And that's our program for today. Hope you can join us again tomorrow for another one on The Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix Shaw Jr., saying goodbye.